The following podcast will contain spoilers, tangents, hot takes, and excessive foul language. Viewer discretion is advised. Enjoy the show.
Greetings, horror fans, and welcome to episode 293 of Frightmares. I'm your host, Austin Proctor, and joining me today for 1975's The Stepford Wives is Cory Johnson.
Well, hey-o there.
Well, hey-o there. You know what's really funny is there's a children's book I read my tiny toddler daughter called Hush Now Banshee, and it's basically about a banshee who's like screaming and yelling through the forest and scaring the fuck out of everybody. And she says hey-o in one of the lines. It's like, hey-o, screamed the banshee, and I always think of you every time because it's so funny. And I always do it differently too. I'm like, hey-o, or however, you know, the many ways.
Continuing the bit.
Yeah, always. So welcome to the history of horror, which is the theme for this entire year, where we are covering one movie from each year, starting in 1975 and ending in 2025. This is actually Cory's choice, because we were going to do Shivers, as I mentioned on the last episode. We were going to do Shivers, but I wasn't really sold on it. It's Cronenberg, so I don't know. I wasn't for some reason I wasn't sold on it. And Cory, you were going through.
It was one of those, like, we know it's Cronenberg, so we know it's going to be a baseline of like, we're going to enjoy it. But it's like, do we really want to start off with Cronenberg?
Yeah. So yeah, I knew I'd probably enjoy it, but at the same time I was like, I don't know, it's just not the right choice. And then you're like, let's do Stepford Wives. And I said, well, I don't think that's horror. And sure enough, it is labeled horror on IMDb, and that is basically the only qualification to review a movie on this podcast. So I'm excited because I'll talk about my history a little bit with this movie here. I don't have any history with this movie specifically because I've never seen this one, but I have seen the 2004 remake. When I went on a solo trip to Michigan when I was 14 to see my family up there, and my aunt was like, oh, let's go see a movie. I said, sure, whatever. And she's like, we're going to go see the Stepford Wives. I'm like, yeah, cool. I don't care. I'm on vacation. And I remember seeing it in the theater. So I knew the twist. Well, and that's the thing. There's not really a crazy heavy twist in this one. I mean, there is, but like, it's not as like, whoa, as the 2004 one in a sense.
It's not so much of a M. Night Shyamalan, what a twist.
Yeah,
It's much more of like oh, hey, we have a twist.
Yeah, here you go. So I already knew the twist going into this one, but I was still curious to see how, because I figured it was going to be different in some way, and it was vastly different. And I really enjoyed this one. I was not into it at first. For like the first half hour, I was like, all right, this is fine, but it's like a mega super slow burn, and I'm into those. Yeah.
You really don't get anything worth of anything until like the last 38 minutes of this movie.
38 minutes. Yeah, so that's my history with this movie. What about you? Had you seen this prior, or?
So I remember seeing it like tangentially. Like, I was in the room for the entire showing of the movie on TV or something, but I was not like watching it. Whoever was like presiding over me at that time was watching it.
Okay.
Now my history goes sort of a little bit deeper with it. My, I think, third grade teacher, one of her things that she tried to do to get us all into reading was she would come in and tell us all, like, kid-friendly versions of the books that she was reading.
Oh my.
To make reading like, oh, adults read too, blah, blah, blah. Like it wasn't just a, hey, this is a school thing. And she like very horrendously, like not like scary horrendous, but like in poor quality gave us the summary of the Stepford Wives book. So I had known that it was a book. And then whoever was watching over me at the time was watching it on TV or something. I got to like be around it, but I had never like fully watched it, like sat down and been like, okay, let's watch this until this watch through. So like 1.25 watch throughs,
1.25 watch throughs, and a very sad retelling when you were very young. All right,
Yes.
So this is basically a new movie for both of us, which is exciting. So we're starting off the year not only with something basically brand new to both of us, but also definitely different than definitely different from what we normally do. That's also why I was really into this idea. When you said it, I was like, ooh, it's horror. I was like, ooh, let's do the Stepford Wives. Yes. What a weird movie to start out with.
And it's very cerebral. Like it's not a movie that makes you think, but it's a movie that makes your brain kind of wobbly in its shell while you're watching the movie, because everything just feels a little bit off.
Yeah.
Like it adds such a flair to the movie, because I'll get into this a little bit later, but it's not conventional horror in any sense of the word, which is why it works.
Yeah, totally agree. And, like I mentioned, nothing really happens until like the last, act of the movie. And that's okay, though, because by the end of it, I was very, very satisfied with the experience that I had with it. So that's our history here. We're going to do things a little differently because it is a new year, new season. So we're going to switch things up just a bit. We're going to limit what we've recently watched to new releases for this year. I'm still going to be doing the Jason picks. And then I'm going to go into a little bit of, since we're doing the history of horror, we're going to do the history of cinema kind of in a little bit of a bigger picture here. So let me do my Jason.
Little bit more highbrow, just a little less bit. Saying fuck.
Yeah. So what did Jason Hill make me watch? This week, he made me watch something called The Giant Spider Invasion from 1975. I have asked Jason to stick with the theme for this year, and since we're doing a movie from every single year from 1975 and on, he is giving me a Jason pick from 1975 and on, which is fucking great. I love this so much. So the Giant Spider Invasion, and not only the Giant Spider Invasion, but the MST3K version of it, where they have the cuts in between and the guys riffing all over the movie. That's the version he wanted me to watch, which I think fits perfectly, since this is not a conventional movie that we would do for the podcast, the Stepford Wives. So the Giant Spider Invasion is the description here is: a black hole hits North Wisconsin and opens a door to other dimensions. Giant 15-meter spiders emerge from it who have an appetite for human flesh. Dr. Jenny Langer and Dr. Vance from NASA try to save the world. This is not so much the Giant Spider Invasion as it is, oh, look, a tarantula for like 90% of the movie, and then by the last 20 or so minutes, then we get some like big, fun spiders. It's very silly. It's not a bad movie that's good. It's a bad movie that's bad, and I know why it's one of those. So it is so ridiculous and so stupid, and the riffing was great. Oh my god, the MST3K version of this, I was cackling from beginning to end. Just their jokes were just on point. I know MST3K usually hits, and I was very happy with this one. So the movie rating for the Giant Spider Invasion is a 2, but the MST3K rating would be like a 4. So that's where I'm sitting with that. Jason gave it a 1.5 for the movie, and then gave the MST3K version 4. So we're basically right on point with the Giant Spider Invasion. You can check that one out, the MST3K version on Prime Video. And again, that is from 1975.
Jason says, check it out. You'll probably hate it.
Thanks.
You'll probably hate it.
You'll probably hate the movie, but not the Mystery Science Theater 3000 riffing. So let's talk about 1975, the year as a whole. So the highest grossing movie of the year, not strictly horror, was Jaws. $477.2 million, not adjusted for inflation. This is all in the time period money. I did not adjust for inflation. And funny enough, the highest grossing movie of the year in general was also Jaws. This year was the 1975. It was, well, technically it's 1976 was the 48th Academy Awards, but they're honoring movies released in 1975. Best actor went to Jack Nicholson for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Best actor,
amazing movie.
Yeah, best actor in a supporting role was George Burns from The Sunshine Boys. Best actress was Louise Fletcher from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Best actress in a supporting role, Lee Grant from Shampoo. Best cinematography went to a man named John Alcott from Barry Lyndon, which is a Kubrick movie, I believe. Best director went to Milos Forman for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Best musical score, like original score, was John Williams for Jaws. And best picture was One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I am also watching every best picture from 1975 to 2025, although I won't be able to do 2025 because they, those are going to be honored in 2026. But nonetheless, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest I was not into it for most of the movie. I thought it was fine. The acting was great. There was some funny humor. Jack Nicholson was in really rare form in that movie, in my opinion. And then it was like a 1-2 gut punch at the end of the movie with what happened. Obviously, I'm not going to spoil it, but that ending hit me so fucking hard. It was ridiculous. I was not prepared for that at all. There was a great character arc with this one person, and then just tragedy happens in the group of people around them. It was not what I was expecting at all. But it was, when I looked back on it the next day, I was like, man, that was such an incredible movie. I really enjoyed One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Danny DeVito's in it. You've got Doc Brown from Back to the Future. I'm blanking on his name right now. Christopher Lloyd. He's also in it. A couple other recognizable. Oh, Brad Dourif. Baby Brad Dourif is in it.
It's kind of a who's who at the time.
Yeah.
It's kind of a massive movie.
Yeah.
And but it's so good. I disagree when you say Jack Nicholson is in rare form. Jack Nicholson, he is one of my favorite actors of all time. He's just fucking amazing.
Yeah. I don't know. I thought he just, to me, it was just such a different role. He had the same kind of manic energy that he brought in The Shining at some points, but it was just, I don't know. It was just, to me at least, I'm not really well versed in a lot of Jack Nicholson movies.
So have you seen As Good as It Gets?
I seen it one time a while ago, so I couldn't. That's the one where he has the little dog or something like that, right?
Yeah, where he has OCD.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I've seen it, but I couldn't recall anything from it. Like, so it's rare form to me because I'm not really, I've seen Anger Management, I've seen The Shining, I've seen other Jack Nicholson movies, but like, I haven't seen a lot of his catalog, so that's on me. I guess I should probably do more digging. But yeah, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, really good. I had to rent that one on Amazon. It was like $2.79. Well worth the rental. I gave it 4 stars. Probably will go up on a rewatch. I can definitely see that. So that's where we stand with other things that happened in 1975. Let's move on to the IMDb Roundup. Booyah. This is the Stepford Wives from 1975, released on February 12th of that year. It is rated PG because, PG-13 wasn't a thing, and this is definitely not an R movie. So we got a PG horror movie going on here for mild sex and nudity, mild violence and gore, mild profanity, moderate alcohol, drugs, and smoking, and moderate frightening and intense scenes, coming in at 1 hour and 55 minutes. And I felt the runtime, but it was only because it was on Tubi. I had to watch all the ads. I kept having to pause to take care of my baby.
Fuck you, Tubi.
Oh my God. So and it wasn't just like 1 or 2 ads. It was like 6 ads, 7 ads. And I'm like, ugh, it took like 3 hours to watch this movie. So I only felt the length because of the ads and having to stop for, the tiny baby. But I tried not to incorporate that into my rating. So listed as a horror, mystery, sci-fi thriller, directed by Brian Forbes, who is most known for The Guns of Navarone, according to his top 4. I don't know what that is, but I'm throwing it in there. Written by William Goldman, who also wrote The Princess Bride, Misery, and Dreamcatcher. Composed by Michael Small, who also composed Jaws, The Revenge. Cinematography by Owen Roisman, who did the cinematography for The French Connection, The Exorcist, and The Addams Family. The one from 92 or 93. Edited by Timothy Gee, who also edited Clash of the Titans from 1981. We have starring Catherine Ross as Joanna, who was also in Donnie Darko as Dr. Lillian Thurman. We have Paula Prentice as Bobby, who was also in I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House as Iris Blum or Iris Bloom. Peter Masterson as Walter, who was also in The Exorcist as Dr. Berenger. Nanette Newman as Carol, who is most known for this movie, according to her IMDb top 4. And then we have Tina Louise as Charmaine, who was also in 98 episodes of Gilligan's Island as Ginger Grant. This had an estimated budget of nothing I could find, grossing $8.72 million. This was filmed in Connecticut. So funny enough, the location of where they said they were in the movie was the location that they were actually shooting, which rarely happens in movies. You can watch this on Tubi with a fuck ton of ads. Movies that came out around the same time, we have Phantom of the Paradise, The Godfather 2, Young Frankenstein, Black Christmas, Dark Star, Deep Red, Death Race 2000, and Monty Python and the Holy Grail. What a fucking line up right there, dude.
For
God
real.
damn, that's a lineup.
And it's still made a good bit of money.
Yeah, $8.72 million for it's no Jaws, but it is, it's a couple mil right there in the bank. IMDb summary, Joanna Eberhardt has come to the quaint little town of Stepford, Connecticut, with her family, but soon discovers there lies a sinister truth in the all-too-perfect behavior of the female residents.
In the town of Stepford, the men are getting exactly what they always dreamed of, perfect wives, and the dream is becoming a nightmare for the Stepford Wives. A very modern suspense story from the author of Rosemary's Baby. The Stepford Wives, about what men can do behind closed doors.
They were telling me about the men's association. Right now, it's strictly men only.
Not to mention that creepy men's association.
We moved here about 2 months ago, and Ed joins this men's association. Anything that gets him out of the house nights is fine with me.
I like to watch women doing little domestic chores.
You came to the right town.
I want to please him now. I'll just die if I don't get this recipe. It took me so long to get the upstairs floor to shine.
Charmaine's changed, Carol Van Zandt's changed, and so have all those other women's club members.
I'm getting the hell out of Stepford.
Bobby, it's gotten to you now. I just want to look like a woman.
And you're not going to leave Stepford either, are you?
Leave Stepford? Charmaine changed, Carol Van Zandt changed.
She's changed. And stop telling me I'm crazy.
You see somebody, you get some help. You see a psychiatrist.
I think the men in the association are behind it. And my time is coming.
Everybody's out looking for us, so don't panic.
I want my children! Where are they?
Charmaine changed. Bobby changed. And my time is coming.
Columbia Pictures and Palomar Pictures present Catherine Ross and Paula Prentice in The Stepford Wives.
Oh,
A very modern suspense story from the author of Rosemary's Baby, rated PG.
Overall thoughts on the movie, Corey, go.
My overall thoughts is this is definitely a movie to watch with a grain of salt. Because even the things that they are rallying against in the movie, the characters that are rallying against them do in some form still embody the things that they're rallying against. So it's one of those, like, they're preaching a little bit, but they're not preaching the right thing at some point. But with that grain of salt comes a very cerebral and very, at some points, very intense movie experience. But also, it's 1975. Everything's just a little bit looser when it comes to what's on film.
Yeah, that's true.
And the performances therein at some points. Some of it is very hokey.
That's fair. So I didn't write down an overall thought, apparently, so that is fun. So I'll just fucking make one up on the spot here. I think this is an incredibly done, in retrospect, I think this is an incredibly done slow burn movie that for the time definitely would have blown me away. I mean, it still blew me away to a certain extent now, but seeing that in theaters in 1975, that would have completely floored me, especially with the twist that they give you, because if you don't know that going in, I mean, you genuinely have no fucking idea at all that would be coming. But I also...
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But since I did know the twist, it was really easy to see how much they laid that shit out. Like, they laid it all out. Once you look at it with knowing the twist, it's just like The Sixth Sense. I watched that movie knowing Bruce Willis was dead. Spoilers if you haven't seen it. So I watched it from a completely different lens.
It's a fucking 30-year-old movie.
I watched it from a complete... I know. I'm just being stupid. I watched it from a completely different lens and noticed how nobody interacted with him. And it was still a fascinating experience. So I think this is an incredible 70s slow burn. I fucking love this movie. Do we want to do my theory now, or do we want to do my theory at the end? Your call.
I would say do your theory in a space where the theory makes sense. Like, if your theory is sparked on by a specific event, bring it up then.
It's not really struck by us. It involves them being in the same universe. So I guess.
Okay, yeah, hit me with it.
Okay, so everyone be gentle to me. I'm trying a new thing this season where I come up with theories and I kind of search the internet to see if I'm validated at all in my theory. So just take a journey with me, if you will. So my theory is that the men who run Stepford are also involved in the satanic cult in Rosemary's Baby. Now you're going to have to go, like I said, you're going to have to go on this journey with me because I have to set everything up and then give you my theory. So
I think I totally know where you're going with this.
So I do have to give credit to Chelsea Steiner of themarysue.com because I'm taking some of what she said because it's going to be much better than anything I will write, but the theory is not in this article at all. I'm taking what she wrote about both movies to make a clear image for why I think my theory may be true. So to set all of this up, let me go ahead and read this real quick. So both films are based on novels by the same person named Ira Levin, and both center on women who grow increasingly paranoid as they feel there's something fundamentally wrong with the world they live in. Each film explores the inherent darkness in the most traditional of women's roles, wife and mother. Spoilers going forward for both of these movies at this point. In Rosemary's Baby, the film plays with Rosemary's growing paranoia, and the audience is left to wonder if she's having a paranoid breakdown or whether her feelings are valid. And despite the protests of her neighbors, doctors, and husband, Rosemary discovers the truth that she was raped by a demon and gave birth to the Antichrist. Her husband sold her out for the promise of a success in his acting career. Rosemary is merely a pawn in a larger satanic scheme, and her body is used against her will to serve a fanatical cult. Now, this sounds familiar because The Stepford Wives explores similar terrain. Following Joanna, we'll get into the movie itself, but so I'm going to kind of skip this part here. So yeah, she discovers the women are beautiful and docile. They don't have any interest in doing anything besides housework and shit. Even an attempted meeting to throw with her friend Bobby, they just don't even, they cannot be bothered with this. So Joanna becomes suffocated in the small town, complaining to her husband, who ignores her and goes to the frequent men's association meetings. Soon after, she discovers the truth at the heart of Stepford. The men are murdering their wives and replacing them with docile robots. So both films center on vibrant women who are betrayed by their husbands, men who are aided by the complicit communities, and while the Satanist cult and evil robots are the root of these genre films, the tools the men use against their wives are frighteningly realistic: sexual violence, gaslighting, and separating their wives from the people who truly care about them. By using calling cards of real-life abusers and the framework of society that dismisses and mistrusts women, these films display an innate horror and fear that women encounter at varying degrees in their lives. Now, to my theory here. What if the women involved in the satanic cult and Rosemary's Baby are replicants who are submissive to their husbands in order to give birth to the Antichrist? Both films involve New York. Rosemary moves from a small town to New York, and Joanna moves from New York to a small town. It would not be far-fetched to think that the men of the satanic cult spread the word about Stepford to people in their buildings, or, clique of outside friends who are interested in leaving the hustle and bustle of New York for a quaint life. Once the couples move to Stepford, the women are replaced, and the finely tuned replicants that act more naturally go to New York in the pursuit of giving birth to the Antichrist, and the ones who are more robotic and not so finely tuned stay in the bubble of Stepford where they serve their husbands. And I rest.
I am 100% on board with that theory, especially because, like I was telling you earlier, I had my own theory about what was going on.
Hit me.
I was like, yeah, it's some type of like fucking science cult.
Exactly.
So yeah, no, we're pretty on point with it.
That was a lot to say. My goodness.
But because you kept saying replicant, my only thing that my brain could do was say, okay, so Stepford Wives and Rosemary's Baby is now canonically within the Alien franchise because
Blade Runner,
which is part of the Alien franchise.
Oh yeah, we had this discussion. That's right.
Yeah. So Wayland Yutani went back in time, gave the fucking secrets of replicants to a dude in 1975, and just started the whole corporation fucking 200 years earlier.
It goes deep, this theory. It spans so many years, it goes so deep. So yeah, that's my just fun little theory that I came up with the help, again, from Chelsea Steiner of the Mary Sue. She gave me the information that relates them together, and then I came up with a theory of connecting them a little bit further by saying that, the men are basically running two cults. So first, some likes here. Let's talk about some likes that I had with this movie. The zooms, fucking 70s zooms. I mean, there's like 3 in the first few minutes, and I'm just like, I'm like rubbing my fucking hands together. I'm like, let's go. I love it. Although, I don't know if it's just the copy that Tubi has. It was not fun to look at. It is not good quality whatsoever, and there's no Blu-ray of this movie. And there's no like HD copy you can rent from Amazon. So the quality was not the greatest, but I can't.
Yeah, it looks like you're watching a tape of a tape.
Right. Yeah. It's like someone recorded it off of TV or something like that. So it's not great. I did notice, and I thought this was hilarious, that not a single person buckled up in the car, not even the kids in the back seat. They're hanging over the fucking front bench seat.
I don't think there were seatbelt laws in 1975.
I don't think there was either.
No, I think seatbelt laws didn't come about till fucking like 1979.
No, I mean that sounds right, and that's probably what. Let's see, when did seatbelt laws start date? Let's see here. So, well, I can't find anything. But yeah, I don't, even if there was, I just don't think they gave a shit back then. But I just thought that was hilarious. Like, all right, everybody, get in the car. We're going from New York to Connecticut. Fuck buckling up. That was hilarious to me. Kids in the back don't give a shit. Did you notice the cellar-style door that they had on their stairs when they got to Stepford? He like comes up the stairs and just lifts up this huge door while they walk up the stairs, and I was like, "Is that a normal thing in other states?"
Oh yeah, in the playroom.
Yeah, I was like, "What is this weird stairway door?" I've never seen anything like that before. I don't know if that's a thing in other places. So if you don't know the twist, then you won't really pick up on the subtle implications that are laid out for you. Because the first thing I noticed, besides the lady being very fragile, was the first meeting they had of the men's club at Joanna's house, when that guy is there drawing her in like all this excessive detail, like fucking artist quality, doing the eyes and then separate, you know, they had like eyes over here, nose here, and then he did like a full portrait of her. Clearly, I mean, that's clearly to get a perfect detail for the robot, which will replace her. And then I think the same guy brings over a recorder and is like, hey, you should say all these words because it's a hobby of mine and I put it in my computer because I think it's going to be more reliable than fingerprints one day. Obviously there to replicate her voice when she's replaced. The cop telling Joanna to not wander too far from home. I'm assuming the cop doesn't want her to stumble upon what's inside the mansion. And, oh yeah, and then the lady that Joanna and Bobby talked to, who mentions there was a women's meeting at one point with like 50-something women years ago. And Bobby's like, where the hell did they all go? They all turned into robots who would rather do housework. Like they lay it out for you so clearly in this movie.
Oh yeah.
So fucking clearly. But again, you're not going to know that until you watch the movie and find the twist. So, and then of course, all the women, there's a lot of women who mention going away with their husband for a weekend. And this is obviously presumably a cover for swapping out the women for the replicants. That's what I'm just calling them. So yeah. Crazy shit. It's all laid out for you. And I made sure to write that down because I was like, man, the signs are all there that something nefarious is going on from the beginning. And you're not going to know. Also, I think it's a very weird thing that this movie got right unintentionally because you can now create your own AI voice with Siri by saying a whole bunch of things into your phone. So that's a weird, that's a weird thing that they like not predicted, but that's a real thing now. So that's funny. I have some other things here, but I want to see what you also liked about this movie outside of what I said.
So you mentioned the zooms. My version of that is the musical cues because there's a lot of like super subtle musical things that they do. So while they're also laying out like, oh, hey, all of these women are fucking robots. Anytime you see one of the women that has been replicated on screen, in the background, you get this little like, like it sounds like somebody is trying to imitate old school computer noises on instruments.
Oh, okay.
Like it's like really high pitched, plucky piano keys and like really high-pitched string instruments. It's really interesting. And they also like for every 30-second walk down the hallway scene, the only reason those are bearable is because the accompanying music that's like building you up to nothing at all is so good.
Yeah, it's so good that it mixes into the movie so well. I honestly, now that you mention that, I'm like, man, I can't really pick out, besides like the ending, that stood out to me, but because I think it just flowed so well together. Although the pool scene with that lady who was malfunctioning, that music was fucking eerie as shit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that music was very eerie.
I also really, really liked how much work they put into making everything look so picturesque and so essentially lore accurate. Like if you're going to have these robots that are devoted to like keeping the house nice, of course, everything within camera shot is going to be like laser leveled.
Yeah.
Everything was like perfect. It looked like a true Hollywood set.
And I think it's really cool that they did that because you can really distinguish who has been replaced and who hasn't, especially when, because Bobby and Joanna throughout the whole movie are like friends, they're talking, everything's normal. And then at one point, Bobby says she's going away and Joanna watches her kids and dog. And then when they meet back up for the first time, Bobby has completely changed. She's wearing like the 50s housewife aesthetic. She's only interested in cleaning. So the change of wardrobe when they get replicated is such a nice little touch because you can instantly know as the audience, like, oh shit, their look has completely changed. Something obviously happened. You know, so I really like that. And yeah, the attention to detail, I think, was there in this movie. They really nailed it.
It's really funny that you mentioned that because in the exact inverse, in the beginning of the movie, you can definitely tell who are the outsiders.
Yeah.
And who are not like part of the status quo because Bobby and Joanne both look like liberated 70s women. And everybody else is like either very buttoned up or like their husbands have beaten them down a little bit and they're about to change them. So they're like in that transition period.
Yep. And it's interesting that you mentioned husbands kind of beating them down. You know, there wasn't, which I really thought there was going to be a little bit more physical violence, and there really wasn't until the end when Joanna and Walter kind of got into it on the stairwell. But
so in the 70s, PG, you can show titties, but you better not smack her in the face.
That's wild to me. Yeah, there is a full I thought it was full frontal for a second until she got closer to the camera. I was like, okay, she's wearing underwear, but I'm like, bro, there is tits on screen for 30 seconds probably total, and I'm like, this is PG.
Multiple times. Because there's the replicant in the very end. They show her nipples like
clear as day
8 times.
Well, I'm saying like, yeah, there's
like
probably
so
like
many times.
There's probably like 30 seconds to a minute of just like at the end. I'm like, how is this PG? That is crazy. I didn't know that was allowed at all, but it is 1975 and things were different. So
yeah,
bring your kids, everybody. But yeah, going back to what you said about kind of being beaten down by their husbands. What I found interesting is the fact that there was already an underlying issue between Joanna and Walter. I was under the assumption, because I had never seen this, I thought it was going to play out in the way that like they both wanted to move to Stepford, and then things got progressively worse and worse and worse as Walter joined the club and became more involved in that. No, they already had a issue with Walter dismissing her feelings, and you know, he's been doing kind of these shitty things for quite some time. Because they have a conversation early in the film about you've done this, you're just making all these decisions for us without talking to me. So there's already an issue established before, like we join their relationship when there's already been a lot of issues, and this just really amplifies all of those issues with the men's club and Walter becoming part of the guys and all that stuff. So I found that to be interesting because I didn't think they had issues until they got to Stepford. But that was, that's just kind of an assumption I had based on nothing. That's just how I thought the movie played out. So what's also fascinating to me is you don't really think anything is off until about 40 minutes in the movie, and that's when that woman goes around the party, around the pool, saying the same thing, like a broken record. So that's kind of when my interest got really piqued, even though I knew obviously she was a replicant, but I was like, this is interesting. Like she's malfunctioning, and then one of the guys that kind of brings her away, like, yes, we need to fix you. Whatever's going on with you, we need to fix. But that was like about 40 minutes in. And like, it's not like it was, it's not like it was boring up to that point.
That's the first reveal of like the downhill on the roller coaster. Like that's like right when like 5 more minutes and things are going to start getting like a horror movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's when things definitely, and it's the way they just kind of sprinkle things in. It's not like wham in your face. It's the little incident at the party. And then this woman, then they go around to all of the women in town like, hey, we should start a women's club. And all the women are like, no, I'd rather clean, or I'd rather do this, or I'd rather do that. And that's another little hint. You're like, okay, why don't these women want to come together and unite and kind of get their own club going? And then they just kind of pepper in these things here and there. And then you finally get to the third act, and then it really ramps up. So it's perfectly paced when I'm thinking and talking about it now. In the moment, I was like, fuck, this is really slow. But it's really honestly not.
And because of the way they do it, if you're not 100% paying attention, you miss those things.
Right.
And nothing makes sense.
Right. That's why I was making sure to pause it when I couldn't pay attention, because I wanted to give my full, and I had to rewind it a couple times just because I was like, wait, fuck, I missed something.
I had to rewind it too. Like I would get caught off guard watching something, and then like it would keep playing. I'd be like, wait, what the fuck is going on?
Rewind. And then of course I would forget what happened when I had to watch 5 minutes of commercials, so I'd rewind after that. Yeah. I would like to mention, I think one of the, like, such a great misdirect that this movie does. And because again, if you don't know the twist going in, this is such a fucking solid misdirect. So there's an issue that comes up when Joanna and Bobby are convinced that there's something in the water of Stepford because something similar happened in Texas. You know, I'm not going to go into the whole description because I'm going to butcher it. But essentially, there was something that Bobby read about Texas being in the water and things just going awry there. So that's such a great misdirect because they don't just mention it and be like, haha, never again. They follow that trail to like a scientist, and they get like water tests and all this stuff. And the guy's like, I mean, it's water. I don't know what you want me to look for. So they eventually dismiss it. But I think that was such a fun misdirect. Like, oh, maybe the whatever's going on, they're putting something in the water to control all these women or something like that. Great misdirect, a great little red herring that I found to be quite fascinating.
Oh yeah, no, it's really good. I feel like they give you a lot of like ideas of whatever it could be,
right?
Because Bobby is such a loose cannon for most of this movie.
I fucking love Bobby. God damn.
So it could be, from their point of view, anything.
Right. They have no fucking clue. They're confused as to why both of them appear to be fine, but everyone else is wacko versions of themselves. Because the women's in their group slowly get replaced, and they're like, what is going on with all these people? So it's such a great progression of just like how the plot progresses is just so damn good. I have two more things here on likes. I really found it hilarious how Walter he was like just shy of having a good character arc, because he slightly redeems himself by saying, okay, you know, Joanna's clearly uncomfortable. Let's move out of Stepford. I'm like, oh, this is a turn of events I did not see happening. Are they going to try to get out and not escape? Are they going to be met with like pitchforks and fucking, you know, burning torches? No. He backtracks on that so fucking quickly and goes off on Joanna for their house not sparkling, their kids looking like ragamuffins, and then he's like, you should go see someone to fix all of your issues, and she fucking does. She goes to see a shrink to just please her husband and talk to this person.
Also, worst shrink in the world.
Terrible. Terrible.
So this shrink's advice is any problem that you are having that causes you this much distress, just run away from it.
Yeah.
Just run. Oh, you don't have family? You don't have it? No, just run. Just drive. You'll figure it out. Just go.
Thank you. Thank you, 70s psychiatrist or whatever you were. So yeah, I was like, oh man, I was really hoping that it would be some crazy like chase through the woods or something. You know, I don't know. I didn't know where it was going when he was like, yeah, let's leave. I was like, okay. I didn't see him saying that. And then the ending, incredibly bleak. They win.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the bad guys win. They replace Joanna. She's shopping in the store as a replicant, and bing, bang, boom. There's your ending. Like, oh, I was kind of thinking she'd get away, you know, but no, she does not. Super bleak ending, but it's almost played like a Twilight Zone ending where everything is fine, everything is peaceful, but everything is fucked. Like everything is not okay.
It does. Now that you say that, it does feel like a very, very long Twilight Zone episode.
Right. It really does. So, yeah, and you know, sometimes bleak ending for the most part, I do enjoy bleak endings. Sometimes it doesn't work for me, but this one was just played so well, I couldn't help but not like it. So that's everything I have that I enjoyed about the movie. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on that we haven't so far about?
I mean that was a pretty comprehensive.
I think we did it justice.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty good. So my only dislike, and this isn't even that big of a deal, but because the dog does come back, but someone took their dog at some point in the movie. I was like, fucking dicks, really? You're gonna take, like, did they kill the dog? The dog is alive at the end, and I was like, okay, thank God the dog's alive. But I was like, that's fucking stupid. But other than that, I mean, besides like the quality of the movie, but I can't knock that for this. It's not their fault that there's not a good copy floating around. So was there anything you did not work or that you didn't like about the movie?
Most of it's just like minor gripes.
Yeah.
My biggest minor gripe is that like 80% of the dialogue does not fucking matter.
Yeah, it is
like there's so much just dog shit fluff talking. And then like small pockets of like, oh, this is relevant to what the fuck's going on. Everything else is ridiculous. I also get that Joanne was a photographer. They're going to take away my taking pictures and yada, yada. But also it was like the most half-assed character point of her entire character. And I almost wish they would have left it off.
You know what? I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because I totally forgot to write that down, because I just forgot about it at one point. But yeah, that actually makes me extremely mad that they interjected that little part of her story for it to not pay off in any way. Like she took a picture where she saw something or something like that. So yes, that actually drove me crazy, because I'm like, oh, the photography is going to come up at some point, right? No.
Well, no. So the payoff for the photography is they put her photos in the replicant's room to train the replicant on who she was. But
okay.
Yeah,
it's not
it's literally just the pictures that she took that were at the art gallery. There's just like 3 of them on that wall in the training room.
Yeah, I remember
like
those pictures.
That's all that was.
Okay.
But it could have been, she could have like stumbled across one of the replicants being made and like taken a picture of it. And now it's a whole fucking like relevant plot point.
Yeah.
Instead of it being her saying, they're going to take away my taking pictures, they're going to take away who I am. Like it's not like a character point. It's just something to be taken away from her.
Yeah, exactly.
And it almost diminishes her character.
A little bit, yeah.
By the way, I loved all the acting in this movie, but every single character was paper thin.
Yeah, besides like Joanna, even Joanna and Bobby weren't really that well fleshed out, to be honest. I mean, they were the most interesting because they were the focal points of the movie, but there wasn't a lot of I would say there wasn't too much depth to the characters. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but I don't know. You know, I mean, it's really hard to say. Anything else about dislikes? Was that it?
No, that's pretty much it.
Okay. So, my hot take, it's really involving a shot in the movie that I had to talk about. So for the time, being it was 1975, I think this movie has one of the single greatest shots that I have ever seen, because I have no fucking idea how they did it. And it's 1975. This is film. There's no fucking editing. There's editing, but there's no digital tomfoolery. So when Joanna finds the replicant version of herself, it starts with a close-up on Joanna's face. And the camera pans around very slowly to the replicant Joanna with no fucking cut. And now, mind you, the real version of Joanna has wet hair. She's in completely different clothes. And then you go over to the other version of her. Her hair is nice and like wavy and ready to go. She's in a sheer thing where you can see underneath. How the fuck did they do that? I watched it 4 times. I'm not even kidding you. I could not find a cut. It's about 15 seconds I counted from her face to the other one. Maybe somehow behind camera she threw on a wig and threw on the sheer, maybe, but like I genuinely, because the replicant had contacts in too. I don't know how they did that shot. I need someone out there to fucking explain this to me.
I have a couple like half-baked theories. Like, I can get you half of the way there, but I don't have an answer for you.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of is they somehow maybe it was like I don't know, like it was shot in such a slow motion, but then they sped it up a little bit, you know, maybe it was like a 1-minute pan or something, but that they sped up. And then once they got to the replicant version of her, they slowed back down. That's the only thing I can think of, is it was really slowed down when they were panning and then they sped it back up. That's the only thing I can think of. I have no fucking clue. And then she changed and all that shit.
Or they spent a truly insane amount of money to shell out for the technology to make a latex mask
Oh shit.
of her. And then I wouldn't doubt if they weren't contacts, if they were like some sort of like glass, or they got some fucking intern to hand color
Oh my God.
every frame of the eye.
Jeez.
And do like that animation on film.
On film, yeah. You know what? I think the only logical explanation is they made a replicant of Joanna. I think that's just what they did. There's just two of her. You know?
I mean, they filmed on location.
Yeah, in Connecticut. Every
effect was practical.
Yep.
She really ran that fucking station wagon through that fence.
She did.
So hey, maybe they did. I mean, they hired Stanley Kubrick to direct the moon landing, and he's such a perfectionist. He went to location. So
beautiful. Well said. I love it. Any hot takes for you on this one?
Not really. It's not a hot take. It's the overall, like, pockets of the movie are really good, but overall kind of boring.
Yeah, no, like, I get what you're saying.
Like the first hour and 15 minutes are just almost suck. There's a few pockets of it that are like, ooh, okay, that's kind of fun. Ooh. But like overall, you're like, did I get tricked into watching like a Hallmark movie?
Yes. How did I know you were going to say Hallmark movie? Oh shit. So Hooked for me, it was kind of hard since I knew the twist, you know what I mean? So I kind of knew what was coming, but I think if I didn't know the twist, it probably would have been the party scene, because that's when I was most intrigued in the movie. Even knowing the twist, I was like, ooh, okay, she's like malfunctioning right now. That was really interesting. Every time they talked to a woman who was replicated, I got even more intrigued, especially after Bobby changed. And the moment when Joanna stabs Bobby and no blood comes out, that was so eerily chilling, even though I knew no blood was coming out. But just to see that on camera, you're like, that's not normally what happens when someone gets stabbed in movies. Something comes out. Even the freaking androids and Alien, had like white shit coming out of them. So to see nothing happen, you're like, ooh, I don't like that. That's uncanny. So what about
I did really like when Bobby gets stabbed. She gets stabbed in the gut.
Right, yeah.
Nothing comes out. And then like 10 solid seconds later, she starts like brain malfunctioning. And I'm like, how does that work?
All the important bits are right in the gut area. They didn't want to put it in the head. That would be too obvious. Yeah, that was kind of funny.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Too obvious.
What about you? What was your Hooked moment?
There were a few that like kept pulling me back in, because like every now and again I would kind of drift off, and that like the water scientist scene really drug me in, even though the whole premise for how they got there was absolutely ridiculous.
It was a bit far-fetched. Yeah,
the first, maybe it was the second, whichever meeting they have at Joanna's house of the men's association. That was also it hooked me, but it hooked me for the wrong reason. It was the acting of the men when they weren't trying to progress the story of the one weird scientist guy and Joanna. It was just like the most fake businessman talk ever. It was like, yeah, so I closed the account on blah blah blah, and if we just move 10 here, we'll have a bang up year. And I was like, you're not saying things. Like, you're putting words together, but you're not saying things.
Oh yeah, I think the dialogue in the script was a little janky. I'm not gonna lie. So I was never really lost in, like, there was never a point that took me fully out, but there are, it did kind of it ebbed and flowed, like it would be really interesting and then kind of get dull and then be really interesting and kind of get dull. And it's like, I think the pacing was perfect, but in the same instant, it's so bizarre. Like, it was so perfectly paced, but it wasn't at the same. It's so hard to explain, like, how I feel about this movie sometimes, or I just don't know. So I was never necessarily fully taken out of the movie, but like I said, it does kind of go up and down for me. But then it was a nice ramp up in the third act. So was there ever a moment that fully took you out of the movie?
So no, not fully, but what I will say is in the first hour, anytime Joanna is just wandering around alone, snooze.
And I'm asleep. Perfect.
Just because there's like absolutely nothing happening. It's not forwarding the plot. It's not developing her as a character. It's just like, hey, we put new wheels on the camera dolly. Let's fucking do something with it today.
Look at this fluid shot we got. Holy fuck. Yeah, that's fair. My horror moment, this like genuinely chilled me to the bone, to be quite honest, is when Joanna is in the mansion of the men's association and is hearing her kids, clear as day, like saying, "Mommy," and "Mommy." And she goes up to a room, opens a door, and then the camera just zooms into a recording that the main scientist, or I think his name was Diz, just stops playing. And I was like, ooh, that was such an effective, like bait and switch scare. Gabby left the room and I was like, you gotta see this shit. And I rewound it and she watched and she was like, oh, we were both just like, oh, I don't like that at all. So that's my horror moment. What about you?
It's funny. My horror moment, precedes that by not too many minutes.
Okay.
It's where, Walter and Joanna are kind of fighting back and forth. And then all of a sudden, Joanna has a fucking fire poker and just beats Walter over the head with it.
Yep.
And she's like, where are my kids?
Where are my kids? Yeah, that was a good moment. And like,
tell me, Joker.
But like, okay, so I have favorite kill on here, but did Walter die? Did they show him?
No, Walter did not die. No.
Okay. So then there's no kill. There's no kill then.
Well, there is one kill.
Who's the one kill?
It's fucking Joanna. She gets strangled by the replicant.
Well, that's not definitely my favorite, that's for sure.
No, Walter getting smacked in the head. He doesn't die. It's my favorite kill.
Yeah, we'll just call it that. So my favorite character is Bobby. I just like the character. I think she's a weird, quirky 70s girl living her best life, until she gets replicated. What about you? Do you have a favorite character?
My favorite character is also Bobby.
Hell yeah.
Like I said, she's a loose cannon. She's fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
And half the things that come out of her mouth are just completely unhinged.
Exactly. Least favorite character, it's Walter, but also kind of the main guy in charge, but mostly Walter. I'm not a fan of Walter. Not a fan. What about you?
So I'm going to come out of pocket again, like I do always for my least favorite characters. The fucking cop.
The cop that's in 2 minutes of the movie?
Yeah. He's the worst law enforcement official I've ever heard of.
It's really funny during that scene when he tells Joanna to like not go over there. And then he leaves. I guess I looked away for a second because I saw, the next scene is like a red car pulling around a corner. And I was like, he wasn't even in a cop car, but it was a completely different car. So yeah, the cop was not fun. I have 3 lines because I could not choose. Very early on when they're moving into Stepford, one of the moving guys is like, because I think Joanna offers them a drink, and he's like, we're not allowed to drink anything on the job, lady, except beer. And I was like, nice. And then Bobby's line that she says, 2 things I always carry, Tampax and ring-dings. Gotta have your priorities. And then I
had to look up what fucking ring-dings were, by the way.
You don't know what ring-dings are?
I did not know what ring-dings are.
Really?
You know
okay.
why?
Why?
Because I am a ding-dong household.
Okay. That's fair. No, that's fair. And then I think the most horrifying line in the entire movie is when Joanne asks like why all this is happening, and Diz is like, because we can. I'm like, ooh, God, it's like, oh, it was like, you're right, you can, I guess, if you really want to. Fuck. It was a very, very, very haunting line. Did you have a favorite line?
I did not. I completely forgot to do a favorite line.
That is totally fair. Is there anything else you would like to mention on the Stepford Wives before we wrap up here?
No, this is one of those movies that I'm going to say, like, hey, this is arguably one of the more, even though it may not be the most well-known, it is a very important horror movie in the horror timeline just because it is so different. And I feel like it gave a lot of newer directors the ability to say, hey, I can make a scary movie without jump scares.
Yeah, no, very true. It's just scary because the atmosphere is so fucking palpable, and it's just, you know, the fucking goddamn misogynistic men out there who just want women who are submissive. It's kind of scary because men like that still exist today. Men, you know, how men just want women to be below men. It's fucked up. So for a movie to do that 50 years ago, to talk about that as it's a hot button issue now. It was probably a hot button issue then. I think it's always going to be a hot button issue. How many times can I say hot button? One more time. So yeah, for a film to do a social commentary like that so long ago, I think is it definitely took some courage to make that, for sure. So let's move on to some post-review stuff here. Taglines: we have something strange is happening in the town of Stepford. Trivia: after the movie was released, there was a feminist demonstration against it, decreeing it as being sexist. One of the protesters hit director Brian Forbes over the head with her umbrella. Catherine Ross commented on the incident in the documentary The Stepford Life 2001 about the making of this movie, stating that this was a powerful testimony to how the movie affected the protesters. This was Dee Wallace's debut film. She's in there for about half a second. Producer Edgar J. Sherrick offered Brian De Palma the opportunity to direct The Stepford Wives after he had seen his cult thriller Sisters from 1972. When screenwriter William Goldberg got wind of this, he threatened to quit since he did not like De Palma's work. Okay. The producers acquiesced, and British director Brian Forbes was hired, much to his own surprise. Now that I know that this is a thing, that I have to see De Palma, like, what I would pay to see De Palma
release the De Palma cut,
bro. What I would see, even just a recut of this. Holy shit! What I would see for a Brian De Palma Stepford Wives. I would pay every single cent I had to my name. The film isn't available on Blu-ray or any streaming platform other than Tubi, where the viewing experience is interrupted by advertisements. I threw that in there because I thought that was just a hilariously stupid piece of trivia to have. Goofs, I couldn't find anything of value. Rated 6.9 out of 10 on IMDb, 3.7 out of 5 on Letterboxd, has a 67% on the tomato meter and a 65% audience score. I genuinely have no idea what you gave this, so what did you give this?
I gave it a 4.
A 4? Oh, I was not expecting that at all.
It's because the points that I do like in the movie, I really fucking like in the movie because it is so well done. There's just a bunch of bread to eat around.
That was beautiful. Well, that's interesting because I also I told myself no matter what rating I give it, I have to give it a half star more because I already knew the twist. So I had to amp it up just a little bit since if I didn't
fair shake.
Yeah, if I didn't know that going in, I would have been like, woo, okay. So I also gave it a 4, which means we are starting the year with a Frightmare certified slap. Fucking love that. Similar movies according to IMDb, we have Revenge of the Stepford Wives, The Stepford Children, The Stepford Husbands. Yes, there is 2 sequels that came after this. The Stepford Husbands and The Stepford Children, both sequels in this fucking canon in this universe. The Thing from Another World and The Bad Seed. Similar movies according to Letterboxd, we have The Stepford Wives 2004, Don't Worry Darling, The Gift from 2015, Get Out, and Rosemary's Baby. Let's do some funny reviews to wrap up this episode. I've got a few here, so why don't you take it away?
I've got a few also because I did this right before we went on air and I got too many. But a 1-star review from Chris. Never moved to a town with a men's club.
That is a fair, a men's club and no women's club. That does not sound like a good idea. 4 stars from Lizzie. The thing is, ... men are just like that. As a man, I can confirm that there are some men that are like that.
A 1-star review from Lek. Move faster.
You're going too slow. 4 stars from Charlotte. I just like to picture a woman going to see this in 1975. Put yourself in those shoes. Fuck.
I'm not even gonna attempt this person's name. Actually, yes, I am. Nangalonanus.
Oh my god.
A 1-star review. A film I've been aware of forever but never seen, so I corrected that tonight. But nah.
It's a no from me, dog. 4 stars from 3.5 stars from Liza. This expanded my hatred towards men. I got one more. I don't know how many you got.
2 more after this one.
Oh shit. Okay.
So speaking of hatred towards men, a 5-star review from Poppy Rocket. I would be blowing all the men up.
Oh, I thought that was going a different direction. Okay.
No, I'd be blowing all the men up.
That is a fair observation. So 3.5 stars from Ely. The way I would have killed everyone in that town if they even thought about taking my dog. And I agree with that. Fucking agree.
A 5-star and a heart review from Zeb Shenzi. POV, you're a woman.
Oh my god. All right, I found one more while we were chatting here from 3.5 stars from Oki. A convincing argument for becoming a crazy cat lady. And that's all I've got. That's all she wrote. What do you got? We got one more?
And then a 5-star and a heart review from Bagel Bird.
Mm-hmm.
They got her.
God damn. I was so sad that she did not make it, but I was so happy with that ending. Weirdly enough, I don't know what it is with bleak endings like that, but they did it so well. So if you enjoy the show, please rate and review us on your favorite podcast app of choice. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Slasher app at frightmarespodcast. Our email is stayspooky@outlook.com. You can also follow me personally on Letterboxd at Dr. Proctor. You are
Frightmare's Cory.
Booyah! So next week, me and my buddy John will be back doing Carrie from 1976. So until then, stay tuned and
stay spooky.